Hello everybody, we're in the kitchen with Daddy again, and today we are cooking with Taheera. We are making rigatoni pie. So this looks interesting, so I want to take a stab at it, and I always choose Taheera when I have the more complicated uh, recipes because she can do a lot of the prep herself. And speaking of prep, we got a new tool in the kitchen today to help with the kids being able to help us do the prep work. So we purchased this little item here. It's been out forever, and I don't know why I just thought about it, but it's a chopper. So she was able to prep the onions and prep the garlic. You just slide the bottom part of the container off, and then you put the vegetable in it, and you push down the stopper, and it rotates and cuts. Very kid friendly. It's a little stiff, so the younger ones will probably have to get over the top of it with two hands, but it's easy to use. Simple recipe. Basically the same recipe that you would use for lasagna. We're gonna have ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, some fresh garlic, onions, mozzarella cheese. The recipe calls for fresh tomatoes, but I'm going to use a jar tomato um, just to cut some of the prep time. And then we're going to brown some chopped pork and ground beef. So we're going to get started on this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the kitchen so we can get started on sauteing the onions. Okay, so we're going to start with our onions. We're going to add it to the pan. That pan is hot. Go ahead and add your onions. And we're going to add a garlic. And go ahead and get your spatula. We're going to stir that for a few seconds. Okay, now we're going to add the ground pork. So you're going to take your spatula and you want to kind of like chop that into the onions a little bit. Boy, it smells so good. Fresh garlic. Oh wow. So while the ground pork is browning, we're going to switch to one of the more tedious parts of this. Is once the rigatoni noodles are done, you put them in the pan standing up. So Taheera is going to work on getting that done while it's browning, while the ground pork is browning, and we'll be right back. Alright, so we've browned a pound of ground beef and a pound of ground pork. Our onions and garlic is in there sauteing. So now we're going to add a little bit of seasoning. So we're going to add a little bit of salt. That's enough. We're going to add some pepper. Okay. Now we're going to add a cup of wine, red wine. And go ahead and stir that in. And as I said before, the original recipe called for a can of tomatoes, but I'm going to use this Barilla tomato and basil sauce. It's a very tasty sauce. I've used it before in other dishes. So we're going to add some of the sauce now. Go ahead, more. And then we're just going to let this simmer for a while. While we're waiting for our sauce to simmer, we're going to go ahead and prepare the ricotta cheese. So we're going to add 1 egg and a container, small container, 15-ounce container of ricotta cheese, and we're going to stir it all together. whole container. Oh, and for our eagle-eyed watchers, you would notice that I ended up using Ziti noodles because when I got home I didn't have any rigatoni noodles and didn't feel like going back out to the store. So, of course, this made it much more difficult because these noodles are smaller, so it takes a lot more of them to fill the pan. So we're working on the second box to get this pan filled, and while we're getting the toppings finished off. So go ahead and stir that up. Okay, we finally have all of our noodles prepped and in the pan. So this is pretty much what it's going to look like. And remember, we're using Ziti noodles instead of ricotta noodles. And again, excuse me for my pronunciations of these terms. I'm not 100% familiar, but you guys get the point of what I'm trying to say. So we have the other thing we're supposed to do is mix Parmesan cheese. Call it living in a bad area. I couldn't find any fresh Parmesan cheese for this portion. We're supposed to mix fresh Parmesan cheese in with the noodles before we stage them inside the pan. I couldn't find any fresh Parmesan, so we sprinkled the Parmesan on top. So go ahead and finish here, and make sure some of it dropped down into the holes in the ziti. So we're just making sure that there's no large lumps, and then we're just going to sprinkle it over the top. And now we're going to take the ricotta cheese that's mixed with our egg, and we're going to spoon it onto the top. And then you're going to take the back of the spoon and press it down into the top of the noodles. And spread it out like you're frosting a cake. So do the whole thing. Alright, so now we're ready to add the ground beef and sauce mixture. So you're going to spoon that onto the top. Okay, now we're going to cover the very top with mozzarella cheese. I'm going to put a nice covering on it. And then we're going to put this in the oven for 40 minutes at 350 degrees. Or until it browns. Alright, we are back and it looks delicious. So we actually know in this case it tastes delicious because we used the leftover ziti and other ingredients, and we made a pan, a traditional pan of ziti, and we've already had it for dinner. So it was what?
It was good, really.
So again, we want to thank you guys for joining us and watching us with our cooking experiences. If you want to see more videos, click like, share, and subscribe, and we'll keep them coming. And until next time, we'll see you.
Bye.